And with that, let's turn to our practice for today. And why don't we just begin by setting our inner Shabbat table, as we like to say on Fridays. So um, forget about your actual table, which perhaps you'll be setting later for Shabbat. But we can always set our inner Shabbat table, and we do that by bringing our attention inwards. So if it's available for you to close your eyes or soften your gaze, that's one way to do that. Just want to bring attention away from the screen, away from whatever's happening around you, into the body, into ourselves. And again, if it's possible for you to settle your feet on the floor and feel the support there, feel the soles of your feet and the sensation there, making contact and feeling supported. And finding a position of kavod, Hebrew word, which usually is translated as honor. And in our tradition, it represents the divine presence. Every one of us is made in B'Tselem Elohim, in the divine image. So we want to sit that way, sit as children of God. So might it be helpful to press the crown of the head up towards the sky, even as the feet stay connected to the earth. And imagine the spine as this conduit, this connection between heaven and earth. Shabbat is understood as a taste of, quote, a taste of the world to come, of the Olam Haba, which is a realm beyond time, beyond space, the infinite element of our being, not constrained by our bodies, not constrained by time, not constrained by space. Basically, our neshama. And let the hands rest in your lap or on top of your thighs. Feel the contact there as well. And see if you can stay in awareness of that crown of the head pressing up and the feet gently pressing down. Maybe spread your toes and really grip the ground. Connected at the top, at the bottom, and feeling the energy flowing between those two poles. We're inhabiting the finite and the infinite at the same time. And our tradition teaches that on Shabbat we receive a neshama yetera, an additional soul, an extra soul. The way I like to think about it is that soul's always there. We're just not as aware of it as we usually are, that we're more aware of it on Shabbat than we are the 6 days of the week. So Friday is an opportunity to begin to become aware of that, quote, additional soul, bringing more attention to the aspect of ourselves that is not bound by our bodies, not defined by our bodies, not defined by our lifespan. Part of ourselves that is part of what is eternal. Zach Newman was teaching yesterday, resting in finding permanence and reliability in that which is impermanent, that which is always changing, unfolding, mysterious. If we can touch into that even for a moment, Shabbat Shalom, Dayenu, it's enough. Staying connected to that sensation of the soles of the feet on the floor, rolling the shoulder blades back and holding that pose of kavod, of honor, honoring yourself, giving yourself kavod. And seeing if we can notice the arrival of that additional soul, just a little bit more aware, just remembering that we have a soul. And I'm going to invite you to keep your eyes closed if they're closed, or your gaze soft and unfocused if that's where you are. No need to look at anything. And inviting you to continue to stay aware of your body, aware of sensation, and remembering to breathe, remembering to notice the air entering and leaving your body. Noticing chiyut, life force, sacred life force, pulsing in your body. Noticing aliveness. I'm going to share a poem by the great Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai. One of my favorites. For many of you, it might be a favorite as well. It's called The Place Where We Are Right. And it was featured recently in a podcast I really love by an Irish poet named Padraig O'Tuama. Podcast is called Poetry Unbound. I'm going to read the poem by Amichai, and then I'll share some of the commentary by Padraig O'Tuama on the poem. Just want to invite us to sit with the beautiful language of this poem. Shabbat is a time when we enter into the realm of chesed, of a realm that's free of judgment. It's not black and white at all. We don't have the pressure of being right, of knowing what is right. We can just be. We don't have to be right. And I think that for that reason, the poem by Amichai is really perfect for this reason. So I'll share the poem. And not to worry, I'll share the text later for you to look at, but I'll just read it for now. The place where we are right. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, like a plow. And a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. I'll read it again. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard, trampled like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. As we let those words, translation by Stephen Mitchell, wash over us, as we absorb them, I'll share the words of Padraig O'Tuama. How willing am I to allow both doubt and love to dig up the place where I am right? I think Amichai is saying, in the place where you have privilege, or in the place where you're frightened about acknowledging you might be wrong, there, allow both doubt and love to dig that up, because something else might be there. It isn't to be groundless. It's to say that there might be another experience of land underneath your feet. It isn't to say you don't belong anywhere, leave, be gone. It's to say that doubt and love are two things that can hold you. Love alone, I don't think, is enough because it's easy to love something and nonetheless be violent in its name. This is about doubt and love. The doubt that says, what if I need to pay attention to another point of view? How willing am I to ask myself a question that might mean I have to stand on new ground, that I have to go a bit deeper, that I have to employ doubt and love, and maybe even bring some of my loyalties into question in order to ask something that has a deeper integrity. So the poem invites us to consider the ground, the makom, where we are. That makom might be the floor beneath your feet, the place where you're sitting. It might be your body, your very self. And the invitation for our practice is to soften. Soften through doubt, through questioning, through allowing ourselves not to know the right answer or the right position, to let that go for a bit, to be open to possibility, to be uncertain, unsure, and to be able to be in that place of vulnerability because we are in a place of love also, as Rabbi Dorothy Richmond reminded us this week, to allow ourselves to receive unconditional, ever flowing love coming our way and feel supported in our vulnerability. Doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, like a plow. And when that happens, we can hear a whisper in the makom, in the which makom, in the makom where the destroyed house once stood, in the ruins, maybe the ruins of the temple. But there is still a whisper, there is still a bat kol, there is still a kol damama daka. So for 10 minutes, let's sit together and allow ourselves to loosen up a little bit. Let go of our grip on the need to be right, the need to know, and rest in doubt and love, and listen for new messages, and let ourselves feel for ground beneath the ground. A deeper foundation to support us as we make our way into Shabbat. So let's sit for about 10 minutes together in silence. If the mind wanders away, that's how it goes. Mind has a mind of its own, and it wants to wander, and we just gently catch it and bring it back to our anchor. The anchor, whether it's the sensations in your body, sensation of the floor making contact with your feet, sensation of your hands resting in your lap or on your thighs, sensation of the coolness of the air entering your nostrils, or the exhalation. And even if we just notice that sensation and we're connected to this moment, even briefly, that's enough. We just keep coming back, keep bringing ourselves back to this moment. We begin to bring our practice together to a close. Let's be intentional and conscious of how we're entering the Shabbat together. I invite you to take a moment to see if there's anything from this past week that you're holding on to that no longer serves you, that you would like to set down for Shabbat. Anything that might have been hurtful, painful, that's continuing to sting. Maybe you can let go of or loosen your grip on that. Or maybe there was a moment or a person or something that came into your life that you'd like to savor, really absorb, really let it give rise to gratitude. See if you can call that up to your mind and see what feelings come up in your body. Maybe it brings a smile. Maybe there's some self judgment or self criticism that you can turn down the volume on, cut yourself some slack, offer yourself some compassion, maybe put a hand on your heart space. and offer yourself a little bit of love. And as we do that, and again, I invite you to place your hand on your heart space if you're comfortable with that. We get ready for Shabbat. Take a moment to offer yourself a blessing. Ask yourself, what's the blessing I could use to move into Shabbat? And you can give yourself that blessing, whispering to yourself, may I be blessed with, and fill in the blank for yourself, healing, forgiveness, love, relief, hope, or anything else with which you'd like to bless yourself. Can you hear that sound? And then you can let your hands drop into your lap again, and your eyes have been closed. Begin to open them, come back to the group. Some of us are in mourning. Some of us are observing a yard site today. Some of us have the custom of standing for mourner's Kaddish. And if that's the case for you, you're invited to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, you have an opportunity to offer your support for those who are. So you can put the name or names of those you are remembering in the chat now or after you recite Kaddish. And I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Divrach, Hirute,
Zwan Karev V'Imru Amen.
Kesh Me Rabba
Nabarach Lamei Amaya V'Yit Pa'ar V'Yitam V'Yitnaseh V'Yitalel V'Yitalal V'Yishtir
Birchata
Chayim Aleinu V'Yal Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Shalom V'Imru Ma'afuya Shalom Aleinu V'Yal Yisrael V'Yal Yishveitu V'Imru Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, just a reminder, next week, we will be meeting on Monday and on Friday, but not Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Very delighted that on Monday we'll be led by Jenna Zadaka of At the Well, who'll join us to lead us for a full moon meditation for the month of ER. So very much look forward to that. And I can't remember off the top of my head who's leading on next a week from today, but I'll let you know in a bit. Take a look. Happy to stay on and respond to questions in the chat or respond to your reflections on the practice today. If you'd like to just continue to sit with us and prepare for Shabbat with us, you're welcome to do that. Many thanks to Jordan Pollock for holding our space. Many thanks to each and every one of you for being here for this precious sacred time we get to share together each day. So I will keep an eye on the chat. And if you have a question, please put it in. Thanks to Jordan. If you can put the link to the source sheet, I'll share it briefly. I'm just going to begin by sharing the words of the Amichai poem, which, as I said, may be familiar to many of you. Maybe some of you never heard it. This is a translation by Stephen Mitchell. And this is the poem. And the link to the Poetry Unbound podcast that I refer to is also in the sheet. If you click on that, it'll take you to the website where the website of that episode of Poetry Unbound. Personally, I just love listening to Pedrego Tuma read these poems. It doesn't really, he can read the phone book. Doesn't matter what he reads, spiritual experience. Highly recommend it. And I thought his commentary on the poem was really very, very beautiful. Um, hmm. Thanks, Julie, for mentioning that about the Kaddish. I I have to say, I almost every day I wonder how is it for people to hear the cacophony of Kaddish and whether that feels jarring for people after we've been sitting. You might remember Max Bamberger, who was an intern for IJS last summer and did a lot of the tech support on the sits, wrote a beautiful piece, which I will try to find for IJS in one of our newsletters about how moving he found it, how it reminded him of the cacophony in any setting where Kaddish is said, about the voices blending together. So thanks for that, Julie. I was noticing that today too. Really interesting. Um, let's see. Well, first I wanted to say also um, uh, extend condolences to, I see there are a number of recent losses, and I know there are people who are in the wake of a number of different major losses. So I want to extend our collective support to all of those for whom that's the case, and also our prayers for healing for all those in need of healing. Um, so one of the nice to see that. Thanks for the feedback about it. There was a comment about the ruined house, which I want to in the poem. Maybe I'll share the screen again here for a sec. Um, in terms of my understanding of the poem, of course, one of the beauties of a poem is that there's no one right answer here. But Amichai is famous for making use of vocabulary from the Jewish spiritual tradition, even though he's ostensibly a secular poet. His poetry is really extremely spiritual. Um, uh, so the house, the ruined house, the place, the makom, shabo haya habayat asher necharav, the place where the ruined house once stood, seems likely to be a reference to the Beit HaMikdash, the temple that stood in Jerusalem that was destroyed and which led to the transformation of Judaism from this cultic sacrificial rite to rabbinic Judaism and to the kind of democratization of worship, of prayer. And the whisper, at least for me, is evocative of the idea of a bat kol, which is this kind of very quiet voice of the divine that can be heard, that's in rabbinic literature, and the kol damama daka, the still small voice. So there's something about this third stanza about doubts. And what I love about Pedrego Tuma's commentary on it, that he lifts up love, that and this is consistent with I think what Dorothy Richmond was teaching us this week. It doesn't just say doubts dig up the world like a mole. It's not just not being right or giving up our rightness and allowing ourselves to have doubts or questions, but it also requires loves. Um, and I love that I don't think I really actually appreciated that as much as I did before I heard Pedrego Tuma's take on this. That there's something about that we need both. doubt, and love, which enables us to open ourselves up, to be porous, to allow light in, to allow water in, to allow for there to be growth and change, and for things not to be static. And when that happens, revelation takes place. And we're on the road to revelation since we're in the Omer, and now we're in week 4. We are almost at the halfway point of the Omer. I guess almost exactly at the halfway point of the Omer. We're heading towards Sinai, which and Shavuot, which represents revelation, moment of being able to be attuned to the voice of the divine, to be able to receive wisdom. And so it's really an apt poem for that. And this is true of every Shabbat. Shabbat is when we read a little bit of Torah traditionally on Mondays and Thursdays, but Shabbat morning is the morning of recreating the scene of standing at Sinai and receiving Torah. And so as we enter into Shabbat, this idea of opening ourselves up, of letting go of preconceptions, really of mindfulness practice, of setting aside our assumptions, that which we know, think we know to be true, and being open and receptive to all possibilities is a precondition to receiving revelation, whether it's on Shabbat or Shavuot. So I hope that was helpful. All right, let's see any other questions to reply to. Oh boy. Betsy, wishing you refuah shlema with your vertigo. And whoever is going through some PTSD. Susan took a poetry class with Yehuda Amichai at Hebrew University. Wow, that must have been quite amazing. I'm just scrolling through everyone's comments here. Thank you so much for sharing your reflections on the Kaddish. It's so beautiful. I'm going to save this and actually share it with the rest of the staff at IJS. Yeah, I see Eileen wrote, where the ruined house once stood feels as if it creates space for being present with vulnerability, and that it's okay. That's how I would see it too. Mir, thanks for that question about having a meditation based on the Kaddish itself one day. That's a fantastic idea. Okay. All right, friends. Let's wrap it up here. Just want to wish everyone a sweet and restorative Shabbat. And I hope this helped lay some groundwork for you, as it were, to enter into Shabbat together. Feedback always welcome, of course, and constructive suggestions, including that one about considering a meditation on the Kaddish one day. It's a great idea. We'll look forward to that. Okay. Many thanks to Jordan. Thanks, Jordan, for holding the fort, holding our space today. Thanks to each of you for being here. Wishing you all Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you back here on Monday, I hope, God willing, for practice with Jenna Sadaka of At the Well for the full moon of the month of ER. Okay, everyone. Be well. Shabbat Shalom.